Most founders obsess over close rate, but what if I told you that it's not the most important sales KPI and that your closer's sales cycle, which is how long they take to close a deal, matters more? I've personally seen closers with a lower close rate outperform and collect more cash than the top performers, simply because they close faster. So in this video, I'm going to show you the real math behind sales cycle, not your close rate, and I'll show you why the sales cycle is the #1 metric that you should be optimizing for in your business. Now, this is something that, I've been waiting super long to create this video because this is the #1 underlooked KPI in sales. Every founder I talk to obsesses about close rate. What's the closer's close rate? What's the close rate? But one thing that not a lot of people, I haven't seen anybody talk about this, and it's crazy to me because I believe the sales cycle, again, is more important. And I only realized this personally a couple years ago, right? When I realized and I did the math about closer A, right? Let's just say that I'm not going to mention any names here, but closer A and closer B. Closer A had a way higher close rate. Specifically, I can give you the exact numbers here. Closer A had a 23% close rate and closer B had a 15% close rate. This was years and years and years ago, right? And this is on live showed up calls. And what I realized is that over a period of a year, closer B with a 15% close rate brought in more revenue than the closer with a 23% close rate. And at a first glance you would say, well, closer A is better, right? Because they have a 23% close rate instead of a 15% close rate. But here's what I discovered, and here's the twist. Closer A had a sales cycle of 4 weeks. So from the point they actually talked to the prospect for the first time to the point where they closed the prospect, it was 4 weeks. Closer B, although he had a 15% close rate, he closed people in 2 weeks. So his sales cycle was 2 weeks long, right? So who actually made more money? Well, let's break it down, and I want to show you the math that I did years ago that made me realize, well, crap, the sales cycle is way more important than the actual closing rate. Right? Now, again, in order to break this down, let's hop into the iPad and actually break down the exact sales, the numbers that I looked at, and I wrote it down here as well so I don't mess anything up here. But for an example, let's go over exactly the math that I did, right? So we had closer A here, and closer A was at a 23% close rate, and closer B was at a 15% close rate. Again, please forgive my handwriting here, I'm doing my best. Now, closer A had a sales cycle of 4 weeks, right? And closer B had a closing or a sales cycle of 2 weeks. Now, over a period of a year, right, the amount of calls that they can handle, right? So the calls per year over here, right, that they can handle. Closer A, because he had a 4-week sales cycle, could only handle 480 calls, right? But closer B, because he had a 2-week sales cycle, could handle 960 calls, okay? So it could handle literally double the amount of calls, right? So the number of deals per year, again, right? Closer A would have done 110 deals per year, or 110 units sold. And closer B, even though he has a lower closing rate, he could talk to more people and close more people. So in a period of a year, this closer could do 144 closes, right? Excuse my handwriting, I know it's atrocious, but yeah, closer B could do 144 deals in a year. So you could see the delta between the two. Even though closer B has a 15% close rate, he closed more deals on an annualized basis because he could talk to more people. Now, let's just do a tangible example here. I don't know what your ticket price is. I don't know what your offer is looking through a camera lens over here, but let's just assume a ticket price of 50,000 over here and a ticket price of 2,500. So I can give you 2 examples, right? Closer A, in terms of revenue collected, right, on a 50K product would have brought in 5.5 million, right? So 5.5 million. And then closer B, on 144 deals, would have brought in 7.2 million. Okay. Now, if they had a $2,500 ticket, or you have a $2,500 ticket, the percentages will still stay the same. But again, closer A would have collected 275K, and closer B would have collected 360K. So you can see over a period of a year, you can do the math here. If it's a 50K ticket, there's several $millions that is the opportunity cost there and the delta between the two closers. And if it's a $2,500 ticket, still it's just under $100,000 in differences that you could have collected simply by cutting down the sales cycle, right? Now, again, there's so many reasons why, closer A could have had a longer sales cycle than closer B. In my experience, what I have seen is the personality differences. Closer B, right, that has a lower sales closing rate, but has a higher or has a lower sales cycle as well, obviously can talk to more people. Why? Because closer B is playing the volume game, okay? So closer B, right, is going to do the volume game. they're not necessarily, they might burn through a couple of leads here and there. And again, I think it's important to have both personalities and both closers on your team, because closer A, right, is actually not going to play the volume game. They're going to go for the quality game. Okay, so they're going to actually give a shit about every single lead that comes in. They're really going to double down. They're really going to try their best to close that lead. Versus closer A, if he senses that the deal's not going to go through, he moves on. Right? And yes, there's a lot more nuances to both these players on your team, where player A, they might burn more leads in the process, right? However, they're going to collect more money on an annualized period, where closer A is actually going to care about every single lead, right? So he's going to work every single lead to the bone. However, it's going to take him longer to close more deals. So that's why I say having a blend of both these personalities is really good to have them on your team, because then you have the best of both worlds, right? You have one closer that's working every lead to the bone, and you have another closer doing the volume game, right? Now, specifically, if you can only choose and pick between closer A or closer B, right, and you don't have a ton of volume, right, then closer A is going to be the closer you want, right, the quality closer. Versus if you have an insane amount of leads and lead flow is not a problem and your marketing team is killing it, well, then I would recommend closer B, right? But again, the sweet spot is to have both of those on your specific team. Now, again, super important that you actually go through this and choose specifically, right, which closer is going to fit your business best. Okay, because again, there is so many differences between these two players, different personalities, but again, closer A or closer B is going to go with a volume game. Closer A is going to go with quality, working every single lead to the actual bone, right? So again, I've had, and again, a personality type between the two here is closer B will be more of a hard sell kind of personality, right? And closer A will kind of be more of a family man, kind of care more about the closer as well, where I have to say here that every single closer should care about the leads that they talk into, right? But again, if you are and can afford the luxury of having both on your team, where you have a ton of volume coming through the doors, have both of these closers, right? Because again, you want closers that actually respect every single lead, but you also want a closer that can handle the volume that comes in. So if there is a spike in volume, right, pass those extra calls to closer B. Okay, because then they can actually handle the volume and speed through this. But again, let's go over why this matters in the first place, right? Because again, what I have seen is that most founders are tracking the wrong thing. They obsess about the close rate in isolation, but they ignore things such as time to cash, which is your sales cycle, right? Pipeline velocity, right? Deal fatigue and cash flow timing, right? It's important to note that I specifically believe it's best to have a variety of closers on your team, like I just mentioned, right? Because again, this is that's the best of both worlds. But already we covered if you can only afford one, or you can only afford one because you have your lead flow is a little bit down, right? And closer A, you always basically want to start with this closer A, which is the quality game. Okay, again, the closer with the higher close rate is they are going to be your asset to your team at the beginning because they care about every single lead, versus closer B is probably going to come in when you are scaling, right? And you have a ton more volume, okay? Because again, if you can collect the cash faster with closer B, right, that's very important. Why? Because then you can reinvest that cash faster. You can buy more leads, you can hire faster, and you can scale earlier, right? But again, if you're waiting 30, 45, even 60 days to collect that cash here with closer A, you might potentially kill the momentum because you're collecting cash slower, so you are reinvesting that cash a little bit slower, okay? So again, it's the equivalent of hiring a great sprinter for a marathon, okay? They're fast in short little bursts, but the business needs endurance, consistency, and cash velocity, okay? You see, what most people don't realize is that a fast sales cycles means more offers are made. When there are more offers made, there are more chances to close. And if there are more chances to close, or more closes, right, then more cash is collected. Even if your percentage of closing rate is lower, right, you're making more offers. If you make more offers, you're going to make more money. That's exactly why the sales cycle is a throughput metric and not a vanity metric. So founders should really concentrate on this metric, right? Now, let's basically talk about what you should be tracking instead, okay? And this is what elite sales managers look at instead of the close rate in isolation, okay? But please don't get me wrong, the close rate is very important important, right? But it should not be looked at in isolation. It should be looked at in conjunction with the sales cycle. So again, elite sales managers will look at things such as the average sales cycle length, right? How long does it take for my closers to close somebody from the very first call till cash collected, right? And also, what is the average deal size? Another hint here is that closer B that concentrates on the volume, they often want to just dish out discounts like it's cake on New Year's, right? Or on your birthday. Because again, they want to get the deal done. They don't care too much about the prospect. They want to get the deal done now, immediately. And again, closer B, they're always going to offer discounts. They're always going to want to get the money in as soon as possible, which is okay. But also remember, you want to train closer B to not give out as many discounts, because again, if they can close at full price, freaking close at full price, right? Now, another thing that, sales managers should be looking at, and things that I look at as well, is how many calls per month are they each getting? If there's an equal distribution of leads across the closers, right? How many calls can each closer handle on a monthly basis, right? And then it goes without saying, you have to track things such as total cash collected, right? And speed to collect that cash. Because it's all good and well if you close a deal, right? But a deal isn't closed, in my opinion, until the cash hits the bank, okay? So it's super, super important. That's how we train our closers as well, is like a deal does not count as a deal when the contract is signed. A deal counts when the cash is collected and the cash in the bank, right? So if you're sitting there and asking yourself, well, what are some other things that how can I reflect this in my business? And let me throw a quick couple questions at you, and if you're sitting there, ask yourself this, right? How long does it take for your team to collect $1 or $8 from a deal, okay? Maybe ask yourself, who on your team is closing faster, not just better, right? And again, if you run a spreadsheet on annual performance, right, you might be shocked to find that your low close rate rep is your top revenue producer. And at the end of the day, what do we care about in business is revenue, right? But again, there's pros and cons to each closure that I've mentioned, right? Now, and there's an importance to have a blend of both of these closers, okay? Because here at Sales Match, this is specifically the stuff that we look at and ask for when we are vetting closers specifically. We don't just ask, what's your close rate, right? And if anything, we don't take their word for it. We go contact the ex-employer to verify the numbers that they do get us, right? But we ask you, and if you're employing somebody by yourself, again, if you're watching this, my goal is just to help you, and I create these videos for my old self, to help my old self. But again, if you do want to use our services to go find the very best closers or setters on your behalf, click the link below. We can do that, where we conduct all the interviews. We actually will go out there, we'll do the vetting, we'll do the mock call, we'll call the ex-bosses, we'll go do all the groundwork and provide you with the cream of the crop candidates. Now, some things that we also look for when we are interviewing closers, and we ask them specifically, what was your sales cycle in your last position? What was your call volume like, right? And how fast can you close, right? And also, how many deals can you process in a week, month, or quarter, right? And we take those numbers and go verify that with the ex-employer if we can get in touch with them, right? It's so important that you ask these right cycles, because your close rate, right, is a vanity metric when it's used in isolation. You have to use it in combination with all of these questions, such as your sales cycle, because again, that's so important, right? Because in the real world, founders need speed and consistency, okay? Not just vanity metrics that they just look at, okay? And that's exactly why we built a sales system that vets for these specific traits. You're not getting fluff, you're getting performance when you are getting a closer or a setter through Sales Match. So again, if you're looking for that and you're looking for us to go find the closers and setters that best match your offer, click the link below. I take calls now and again, so I hope to talk to you as soon. And I really hope this video helped you. And please start concentrating on and tracking specifically sales cycles over and above close rate, even though your close rate is still very important. So I hope this video helped you, and I'll see you in the next one.